The David Pakman Show covered a really interesting story about a big pharma CEO who let it all hang out about the way that the system really works.
Let me tell you a little story about a pharmaceutical CEO admitting the reality that their business is profit, not helping sick people. I'm not talking about Martin Shkreli. I'm talking about J. Michael Pearson, who's the CEO of Valiant Pharmaceuticals. Ring of Fire has turned their attention to this guy in the wake of the Martin Shkreli price gouging. Pearson's company is not in the business of curing disease. They're not in the business of easing suffering. They exist to make money for their shareholders, which the CEO acknowledges. He said, quote, "If products are sort of mispriced and there's an opportunity, we will act appropriately in terms of doing what I assume our shareholders would like us to do." Acting appropriately has apparently led to Valiant raising the prices on several drugs this year, in some cases as much as 800%. How are they justifying those price increases? They say they are, quote, "setting their prices on a range of factors, including clinical benefits and the value they bring to patients, physicians, payers, and society." There's also a stated concern about potential competition from generic versions that may come onto the market in coming months. Pearson is absolutely right, Lewis. He is just the messenger here. He is just stating the reality, which is a system where healthcare and medication are a for-profit business is a system that does not prioritize people's health. We knew that. He's just admitting what was so obvious to us.
Yeah, that's 100% correct, and that's an issue, and that's a point that oftentimes, unfortunately, I think some liberals miss. So, in other words, you don't blame necessarily the individual, you blame the system. And when people are working within a system where the whole premise of the system is fucked up, it's not necessarily that we're dealing with bad people, it's that we're dealing with a perverse incentive structure that can lead otherwise good people to do bad things. And this goes for a bunch of different areas too. Even when you talk about cops, do I think that the majority of cops are just bad people who are all racist at their core and, they act out on these evil impulses? No, that's like a caricature of what's actually happening. What's happening is, unfortunately, they're functioning in a system that gives them the green light and incentivizes them to do the war on drugs, for example, which is like the new Jim Crow, which disproportionately targets minority communities. They're functioning within systems that may allow them or push them in the direction of doing stop and frisk, and they always go to poor minority communities to end up doing it. So the problem there is the system. They shouldn't be allowed to lock people up for doing drugs in the first place, so they shouldn't have the green light to search people. They should only be focusing on violent crime. They should only be focusing on rape and assault and murder and shit like that. So the problem is the way we've set the system up, not necessarily that the individuals themselves are bad people, even though occasionally, sure, we do have, the occasional bad actor, no doubt about it. And even with money and politics, you see this problem. It's not that, everybody who's in Congress right now, they're just all the scum of the earth. And bleh, if we just replaced all them and go picked random people from Iowa and Idaho and Wisconsin and Hawaii that, ooh, look, now it's functioning so much better. No, because the people get their moral code and their ethics chipped away at by the way the system works. The system rewards you if you go and raise money from special interests and corporations and you do their bidding. So even if you take good people and put them in that situation, maybe 1% of them will be able to override the bad incentive structure, somebody like a Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or Alan Grayson. But the overwhelming majority of them, even if they're good people, like, good run-of-the-mill normal Democrats, it's easy for them to fall into the trap and become establishment corporatist Democrats because of the way the system is geared and what it rewards. And it's the same thing with what David's talking about here, which is the pharmaceutical company, the health insurance companies, the health care companies. In the U.S., we've set it up so that most of the system is private and for-profit. Well, by definition, under that system, you're only going to care, or you're going to care first and foremost about, how do I pad the bottom line? I have a fiduciary responsibility to my shareholders to make money. I need to make money. This is why we're in this business. So by any means necessary, we have to meet that goal. And the problem is the way that system is structured. You need to incentivize doctors, for example, to actually want to fucking treat people and make them better, not incentivize them to stay on pills and, keep coming back to them or something like that. Same thing with the pharmaceutical companies. You want to incentivize them to actually find cures so that we fix problems, as opposed to incentivizing them to just keep making more money. So you want to create things that aren't a cure, but it's somewhere in the middle where you got to keep coming back to me to get your fix. So, and this is where the role of government comes in, because I'm one of those guys, everybody already knows, I think there are some areas where, yes, the profit motive in capitalism makes sense. Consumer products, video games, cars, couches. I don't want the government making that. In fact, I think empirically it's been proven that they suck at making stuff like that. But do I want the government involved in health care, health insurance, the pharmaceutical industry, education? Absolutely. The profit motive has shown it is horrendous in those areas. So we need to be rational about how we prioritize and how we set up the system. And we don't necessarily need to blame the individuals. We need to collectively fix the system and make it so that good people can act in a good way and they're not incentivized to act in a bad way.